Where's the blue one? Thank you. Wow, that took forever.
Goeiedag! Good day, fellow South Africans and citizens of the world.
Thank you. Wow, that took forever.
I've been looking around for salvation. I've been looking around for the truth.
Goeiedag! Good day, fellow South Africans and citizens of the world.
Not in this world, you
Africans and citizens of the world.
not in this world, you citizens of the world. There's a lot of things that can tear you apart. I know the road sometimes feel lonely, but remember you're not the one and only. There's always someone there to help you. A helping hand to pull you through. There's only one thing you should do. Take my hand and join the Love and Laugh crew. If you're looking for somewhere to go, if you're looking for someone to know, if you're looking for someone to guide you, then let love and light guide you. Oh yeah.
Don't worry, we'll be keeping you busy on the channel. There's going to be a lot of entertainment. Okay guys, please remember to subscribe to be kept informed and ring the bell for the updates. Please like this video, please share this video, and above all, please stay safe. Bye.
Goeiedag, or goeienaand, good evening fellow South Africans and citizens of the world, and I do apologize for that noise at the start. I had a window open which was playing the live stream, and that's where you get all this echoing and all that sort of stuff happening. And yeah, I couldn't find it, so I actually shut down all my windows on Google Chrome and just killed any window that was causing that extra noise. But it's all done. It's all fixed now. Alrighty, let's get into tonight's live stream. Now, before we do, I just want to say to Henry LaRue, I'm not sure if he's here, but Henry, happy birthday for yesterday, and may you have many, many more. Now, tonight I'm talking to Laurie James, and we're going to be talking about a subject that could affect anyone watching tonight, and that's cyber porn, revenge porn, a whole lot of things, cyber stalking, cyber bullying. More likely than not, sometime in your life on the internet, you will actually be a victim of one of these, and that's why this is such an important subject. Alrighty, I'm going to get Laurie on, and we'll get the show on the road. Here we go. Hi, Laurie.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi, Scott. How are you?
Good, good. How are you?
Always good, thanks. And yourself?
Excellent. Now, let's get started. We're going to be talking about a subject which is really not really talked about, but it is a very important one for people to understand. So to kick us off, Laurie, what is dark psychology?
Well, that's a very interesting one, because basically dark psychology acknowledges that we all have within us the ability to behave in a predatory or dark way. In other words, we all have the ability to hunt other people, to get involved in things like cyber stalking. But then it's quite interesting. With dark psychology, we assume that such behaviors are purposeful and motivated. And then there is a little exception, and that's the exception where we look at the fact that no rational purpose exists for this behavior, and we call that the dark singularity. And in this theory, it suggests that people possess various degrees of malevolent intent that forms a dark continuum, and that it's and part of that are all the dark factors that make this up. So it's basically the dark side of human behavior.
Right. Well, it's interesting we're talking about that, because you do find people that you know all of a sudden acting in a way which you say, that doesn't sound like Michael or Mary or whatever, and that's the dark psychology side that everybody basically has hidden inside them.
Yes, we definitely all have that hidden inside of us.
Wow.
The dark singularity is a little bit more interested, because they are just motivated. The sole motivation is causing pain. They just enjoy being dark and inflicting pain on others. There's no secondary motive that they're actually trying to fulfill. So they are even more dangerous, because they just do what they do for pure enjoyment.
Now, that's something that's not common with everybody. It's just some people have the psychological bent.
Yeah, it's very much closer to psychopathy than the others.
Right. Okay. Now, what are online predators?
So a digital predator is usually a group. It's a person, a group, or a nation who indirectly or directly engages in the exploitation, the victimization, coercion, stalking, theft, disparagement of others using IT technology. So we call those online predators. They're often driven by deviant fantasies and desire for power and control and retribution. They could be driven by a religious fanaticism, political reprisals, psychiatric illness, perceptual distortions, a need for peer acceptance, or even for personal or financial gain, which we see a lot in the revenge porn side, for example. They can be any age, any gender, any race, any economic status, any religion, or come from any national heritage. And their sole requirement to get started in this dark dimension is an internet connection. So it's anybody with an internet connection that wants to use the internet to abuse others. Another quite interesting thing and central to this concept is the premise that the information age criminals and deviants are violently disturbed are psychopathological, and these are classifications to new humanity. Whether that offender is a cyber bully, a stalker, a harasser, a cyber criminal, online sexual predator, a cyber terrorist, an internet troll, an online child pornography consumer, they're all classed as digital predators, and they're all engaged in internet defamation and nefarious online deception. And these are the people that fall within the scope of an internet predator or a digital predator. And we use three major criteria to define them, which includes, first one is a self-awareness of causing harm to others, either directly or indirectly using internet communication technology. The second one is the usage of ICT to obtain or tamper with or exchange and deliver harmful information. And the third one is a general understanding of cyber stealth, which is used to engage in criminal or deviant behavior to profile, locate, stalk, or engage a target. Cyber stealth really just means that they use the anonymity of the internet to attain these goals.
Right. Okay. Now, just for people who, when we talk about cyber harassment, cyber stalking, cyber bullying, it's kind of a grey line between these different areas. Can you explain to us the difference between, once again, cyber harassment, cyber stalking, and cyber bullying?
Okay, so cyber harassment and cyber bullying are basically have this very similar requirements. They're very, very much the same. But where they differ on the internet, on our definitions, for example, that we work with, cyberbullying is a pediatric or a minor phenomenon. In other words, the child is involved, or is a minor involved as the aggressor and as the victim. Basically, cyberbullying is harmful, repeated hostile behavior intended to deprecate a targeted. It's always between two minors. That's the difference. Cyber harassment is the same sort of behavior as cyberbullying. So it's the adult form of cyberbullying.
Right.
But it differs from cyber stalking in that it does not involve a credible physical threat. So it usually pertains to threatening or harassing messages from different information and communications technologies to torment a person or a group or an organization just to drive them crazy. But there's no credible physical threat. Right. Whereas cyber stalking has the actual credible physical threat. And there you have much more, the cyber stalkers are usually an online assailant type tactics. They often have, it's a psychopathological ICT user usually. And then it's also, cyber stalking is the most dangerous of the three types because the others usually just remain online. Although bullying is now traversing the real world and the online world. But the cyber stalking, because of the physical threat, it often traverses. They move from the stalking behaviors online to an actual scenario where you're in physical danger.
And this is where, for example, Facebook has got to be so carefully used. You don't have photos of your home or your car with the rego plate and stuff like that, because stalkers can then use that information to track you or your family down.
Yes, absolutely. So Facebook will be used, any social media can be used to track you down. So WhatsApp, Facebook, Instagram, Tinder, all of these social media platforms all carry your personal information. But usually it's the person themselves that actually, it's what they post that puts them in more danger than anything else, and not having the correct cybersecurity settings or the correct security settings on these apps that puts you into more danger than you would be otherwise.
Right.
In fact, it's very interesting. We just had a look now. I saw a post yesterday where under French law, they're looking at the total banning of photos of minors being posted online, even by their parents.
Wow.
To protect those children. Yeah, a total ban, which is really, really interesting.
Now, just talking about laws, the South African government are trying to bring in these hate laws. You know, where if you say something that offends somebody else, you can actually be charged criminally and all this sort of stuff. What are your thoughts on that?
I think it's absolutely ridiculous. Especially, I mean, okay, you need to define hate crime. I mean, for example, what we're seeing so much more of now is these gender issues where if you're offended without the person even knowing, I mean, if somebody looks like a woman and you say she, I mean, where's the offense in that? But it's being blown out of proportion. And as far as I'm concerned, look, this is my personal view. You are born with your biological sex, and that is your sex. I don't care what you identify it. I don't need to buy into your delusion. And that's what I think is where the problem comes in, is expecting us to buy into the delusions of these people suffering from sexual dysphoria, really and truly, which is a psychological illness. And now they want the general public to buy into the delusion. I think it's preposterous.
Yeah, and what actually makes it worse is that young children in schools are being taught that this is okay.
Well, again, it needs to be managed. I don't think that any prepubescent child of any age should even be subjected to this. In my opinion, it's drivel. It's a ridiculous ideology that we need to actually, everybody needs to stand against it. And these notions of allowing children to have sex changes and hormone therapies and everything else, it's ridiculous. You ruin these children's bodies for life.
Absolutely.
I think it should. This is my personal opinion. I mean, everybody, I'm sure, has their own opinion, but I think it's really dangerous, because if you look at Sakiel's or her dress, does that mean he's trans? Does that mean he's a girl? No, he's just a boy going through a phase.
Yeah.
You'll come out the other end if it's handled correctly.
Yeah, absolutely. Now,
that's my view.
Yeah, no, look, I'm totally in agreement with you, and I think everybody watching here feels the same way. Now, just getting back to this cyber stalking and so on, what should victims do and not do a victim of one of these cyberbullying, cyber harassment, and cyber stalking?
Well, I think the first thing that they need to do, the first thing that you should do and the most important thing that you need to do is to gather all the evidence. Don't delete anything. And then go and open a case at the police station, because we can't help without a case number. So once we have a case number, we can actually contact the various service providers, get the documentation that's necessary, file for preservation orders, contact Meta, Facebook, or any of these other agencies to actually get the trail of forensic evidence that would be necessary to prosecute. But from the minute it starts happening, preserve all the evidence. Don't delete anything. I know it's sometimes difficult to look at and you want to get it out of your life, but don't. Preserve it. Make copies. Make sure that it's safe. Make sure that even if they get a hacker to hack your device, they can't get to all the copies. They may be able to clean it out of one device, but not all of the device. So make sure that you really, really make an effort to preserve that information. Also, tell somebody. Find yourself psychological support, especially with cyber stalking, because they rarely give up. Depending also on what type of cyber stalker is targeting you. And that's also very important, is to try to define what that motivation is. And each of the stalker typologies, which we can discuss a little bit, has a different motive, what he's actually seeking to get out of this. But if you have any hope of prosecuting, you need to be really careful that you preserve that evidence.
Right. Okay. So, and what shouldn't you do?
Well, in my opinion, you shouldn't engage. Don't engage with them in any way, shape, or form. Um, you also, as I said, don't delete anything that can be used as evidence. Um, try, I would say, just really don't engage. Don't give them what they want. Find some support. Find a cybersecurity company like my company that can assist in gathering the data and also assist you psychologically. Because I think the most important thing is to not give them power over you. And sometimes that's a very difficult thing to do. And as I said, again, it would depend on what is the type of stalker that's attacking you. What is that stalker looking to get out of it? But the most important thing is not to respond in a way that aggravates them and then sets them on a never-ending spiral, because that can become very dangerous for you, especially with the stalkers. The harassment also, same thing. The less you respond to them, the better it is. I mean, I've had ridiculous attacks on myself, especially when I was involved in the Oscar Pistorius trial, and specifically on Twitter by a mountain of internet trolls. And I've also had something similar on Facebook, where a woman that was seriously in need of psychological help decided to target me because she had decided that one of my friends from school, for example, and this happened, he was a friend from school, decided to, she decided that, I don't know, that I was still in contact with him, but I don't know if she decided we were having a romantic engagement and she was jealous, and she just went insane and started sending me the most violent, threatening, using foul language messages you've ever seen in your life. And I just didn't respond, and eventually that drove her crazy.
Yeah.
So sometimes just not responding is the best thing that you can do.
Yeah. Now, I'm just going to restart the stream because we seem to have a little problem going through to some people. So I'm just going to stop it for a second, and then I'm going to start it again. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Now, all right. Now, guys, I've restarted the stream, and hopefully that'll fix up the buffering that some people have been experiencing. If that's better, just let me know. Just put one in the side chat. Okay. Now, just continuing with this this topic. What are the stalker typologies that you come across?
Okay, so with stalkers you have 5 major typologies and then a new one, a 6th typology that specifically relates to ICT. So the first one is a rejected stalker or a rejected cyber stalker, depending on how you want to look at it. Mm-hmm. They're usually motivated to pursue their victim in an effort to reverse what they perceive as a wrongful set of circumstances causing a divorce or a termination or a separation from that relationship. So they're either feeling misunderstood, they're hoping to reverse a breakup, or they feel angry and they're looking for a bit of revenge because their efforts at reconciliation with the victim has failed. Now that is this typology is found both in the cyber world, but also it's a stalker typology in the real world as well. The second one would be your resentful cyber stalker or your resentful stalker. These guys are dangerous given that their perceived motivation for stalking is resent. So it's often revenge based. They're fully aware that the victim is cognizant of their stalking, but they continue to fulfill a distorted vendetta that they feel is 100% warranted. So they're very difficult to negotiate with as well. They want you to experience fear and distress, the victim, and that is one of the goals of this type of stalking. And when you've got this type of a profile, the cyber stalker believes that that victim is both deserving, and it's important to make them feel frightened. So they want to cause them anguish and distress.
Right.
So for that type of stalker, you've got a major problem. Then you've got the intimacy-seeking stalker. So they don't really have any ill will towards their victim. They just want a loving relationship with them. So they're looking for a soulmate. They feel you're destined to be together at all costs. And in their mind, somewhere it's their job and their purpose to make sure that their destiny is fulfilled. So we also refer, they're the intimacy-seeking stalkers. And it's a segment of the population. They often target celebrities. They target public figures. They're a little bit blinded by their distorted perceptions and their feelings of destined love. So they're not usually extremely dangerous, and you'd have to look at how they respond to you just setting very strict boundaries. That would probably get rid of them. It's not the same motivation at all as the previous one.
Right. Okay.
And then so then another one is the we call them the incompetent suitors. And the name says it all. So this type of stalker is deeply enamored with their victim. Their interest in the targets is it's a fixated state where they spend their entire waking life focused on this endeavor of one day becoming a couple. They usually lack social and communication or courting skills, as you said, the incompetent suitor, and they may feel entitled that their fantasy of this loving relationship is inevitable.
Yeah.
It's a little bit like the intimacy-seeking stalker. The incompetent suitors are more gradual in their means and their methods of conduct and contact. So again, not a hugely dangerous category. So those are okay. And then the predatory stalker is another one. They are the most dangerous and the most determined because they're predatory. So they are motivated usually by a perverted sexual need. They actively engage in planning their attack, as well as fantasizing about sexual acts with their victims. They don't have any feelings of love towards their victim. They're motivated by a belief in the predestination of this relationship, and their fuel to dominate and victimize resembles the psychopath in real life. And they experience little to no remorse about the welfare of their target, and they will just continue. And these are the types of stalkers that often end up killing their victims.
Wow.
So they need to be handled with extreme care.
Okay.
And then our last little category is quite a new one. So we call them the ghost cyberstalkers. And these guys are unique to the information age. So they're online assailants that target their victims, and they can't identify them. They want to keep their identities hidden. They rely on the cyber stealth methodologies. So that's they want to stay hidden. So they make direct, they make indirect threats. They want to inspire fear, and they do this on an ongoing basis. And they also will threaten physical harm. But they also very much enjoy it because what happens with these guys, especially for the victim, is you don't know who it is. So you stop trusting everybody. And that's really sad for the victim because you simply you find that those victims pull away from society in general. They also represent an amalgamation of things like the predatory troll or the sadistic online user with no connection to the victim. So it's very difficult to figure out who they are, and they also rely on what we call the veil of anonymity that's afforded to most online users, or all online users, if you use the right tools to hide. So that's why I was saying it really, really depends on what type of stalker you're dealing with, and you need to identify that because the motives are completely different. Therefore, the handling of the incident has to be completely different. So some are violent, predatory, sadistic, psychopaths, while others are just poor little sad souls looking for love.
Now, what's the most extreme case you've come across as someone who works in this area?
There have been a lot. The cyber stalking side is so dangerous. It's really scary. It starts with, I mean, it's often ends in murder. You really have to be careful. These guys get completely fixated. They make threats. You think it's not serious. They follow through. If you're not sure, they'll even make 15, 20 profiles and come at you from all angles.
Wow.
That you don't even know what you're dealing with. Yeah, you have no idea. And it's really sad because the one will attack you in this way, then the other one will pretend to be your friend and you'll lean on them, and then it will actually be the same person, and then the other one will come back saying, yes, you're speaking about me, and undermine. I mean, a lot of the outcomes of these cases are either murder or they're suicide when you have these extreme forms of cyber stalking. We see even the suicides now with the bullying as well, but the cyber stalking is where you have the physical threats and when they actually may follow through on these threats. So it also looks, if you look at what the cyber stalking behaviors are, you can also see where that's going to go.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, let's look at some examples of what could be considered cyber stalking behavior.
Sure. So remember that most of them, the fundamental here is the online harassment and tormenting behaviors aimed at the victim. So the first thing would be your electronic messages, your classic emails, your text messages, Twitter. All of these things can be used to track and stalk and communicate with victims. So your standard electronic messages. This can always escalate into things like spamming and sending threatening emails to the victim's family, friends, co-workers. Often they get your whole family involved. They'll look who are your friends and family on Facebook, and they'll start telling them stuff about you and isolating you from your friends and family. That's a very common trick, because a victim that's alone and isolated is obviously more vulnerable and an easier target. If they get your personal information, they might post your personal address, your name, your phone numbers, and all your emails online for the whole world to see and use. And then they'll usually do something like they'll put some disparaging information. They may put on a naked photo and say of someone else and pass it off as you with your name and address, saying you'd like to have suitors or whatever. This is what they do. Or maybe they'll even traffic you online, but it's not really you. They'll just use a number and say, please call me if you want some kinky sex. And they'll post your name, address, and phone number. I'm available all out. Stuff like that. So they do that. That's quite common.
No, that's called doxing, isn't it?
Yes, that's right.
Yeah. Okay, carry on.
Yeah. And then also just posting offensive comments as if they're the victim. They'll often use your identity and start posting offensive comments and get people to actually ignore you and take it out on you. They do that quite a lot. Like I said, they're creating sexually explicit images of you and your loved ones. And of course, with the latest technologies, it's easier to put one person's head on another person's body. So they can do that quite easily. They also start hacking the victim's computer and accounts and mobile devices if they're that technically skilled. But they may be, and most of these guys are motivated enough to become technically skilled. The other thing they'll do is they'll subscribe the victim to pornography sites and unwanted advertising. So in your name, they'll subscribe to a whole bunch of pornography sites, and they'll send it to, for example, your work email, so that you start getting all these adverts in your work email from porn sites, and that can cost you your job. Yeah. Another thing they do is they attach spyware to your emails, and they can install it on the computer if they're good enough to do that. They set up websites that threaten the victim and encourage others to contact and harass them. They use computer monitoring software like spyware, and that allows them to monitor your computer and your internet activities. And if the victim is dumb enough to leave their location on, they can track them, their physical movements using the location on the mobile device. That's one thing I always suggest is please just turn off your location when you're not using it. And then, of course, many of us go to internet cafes and things, or not just internet cafes, to shops, to restaurants, whatever, and we immediately log on to their networks, or what does Facebook have? I don't even use it, but what is they have that hi, checking in at the airport, checking in at O'Hagan's, checking in at this restaurant, that restaurant. That allows the stalker to actually monitor your patterns, where you go, what's your favorite restaurants, and it gives them so much power over you to track you.
Wow. And sorry, I've just got a bit of a cough. How can we prevent cyber stalking? What are the suggestions you have regarding stopping this actually happen to you?
So the first thing that you need to do to protect yourself is to actually, by not affirming that the dangers are real, people don't realize how concerned they need to be, and they don't realize that they have to set boundaries on the information they reveal online. So one of the first ways of preventing it is to set boundaries for yourself about what information you want to reveal online, and stick to them. Because if you deny the existence of predators and cyberstalkers, you don't do that, and you start having gray barriers. So maintaining your barriers is very important, especially with strangers.
Right.
You also need to educate yourself, because cyberstalkers and all internet predators rely on the public not being educated on the necessary steps to involved in reducing the potential of becoming a target. So educate yourselves, educate your loved ones. You also need your online people security on your devices. It's quite easy and straightforward, and there's loads of apps that do that. Also, check that your security on the app you use is at maximum levels. So if you use Facebook, check your security settings. Use your multiple authentication devices. Make sure that those settings are high. Make sure that only your friends can see your photographs, for example. You can actually, in Facebook, and I know this, you can set groups. So you can have a group, and you can, if you don't want to be rude, you can accept them into your friend network and put them in a group, for example, called acquaintances. And then set that setting for that acquaintance group high, so that your family and friends, your family and close friends, put in another group. Set that setting slightly lower so they can see anything you post. But your group with your acquaintances can't see photos of your children, can't see photos of, can't see your pictures unless you give them permissions to do that. So make sure that you always run your social media at the highest security settings that they allow. And as I said, the most important thing with cyber stalking is its boundary setting. Don't engage in social exchanges with people you don't know. And then another very good tip is to always familiarize yourself with your local laws on your cyber harassment and also on your stalking, and make sure that you have local law enforcement's contact at hand, or a company like Cyberetti. You can have their contact details at hand so that you have the ability to actually reach out and contact someone that can help you quickly in the event that you need them.
Right. Now let's move on from cyber stalking, etc., and look at another very, very concerning area, which is revenge porn. Can you explain to people what is revenge porn?
So, revenge porn is the distribution of intimate images or videos without the consent of the person that's depicted. It can take many forms. It includes sharing images or videos of an ex-partner or with a partner and posting them on social media or websites without that person's consent, or using them as leverage to coerce or blackmail the victim. We also see a lot of revenge porn in the sextortion. It can also include images or videos that were originally shared consensually, which often happens in relationships.
Yeah.
And then they are later distributed without the consent of the person depicted in the images.
Right. Okay. And what motivates offenders to do this?
Oh, yeah, I think that's pretty clear in the revenge part. So most of them are revenge motivated, and let's face it, revenge and love are some of your biggest motivators into any crime that involves this type of behavior.
Yeah.
But it mainly involves vengeance. Also, once you've lost the person or you're no longer involved with them, you often want the power and the control over the victim. You want to extend that after the relationship is finished. They're often motivated by feelings of jealousy or revenge, and they want to humiliate that victim. Also, once that victim becomes involved with someone else, then the jealousy even escalates because they haven't ended the relationship in their mind and they're angered by that person becoming involved with someone else. And then a lot of it is attention seeking, and also they want validation, or if they're using this to extort the person, it could simply be financial gain. Just bear in mind that research has shown that revenge porn is often associated with narcissistic personalities, and often they lack any kind of empathy for the victims. And you'll find that mostly, not always, but mostly, they have a history of abusive behavior, such as either domestic violence or stalking.
Right. Now, I just want to address the side chat. Guys, I know the video is it's sort of buffering from time to time. I'm recording this live stream, so I'm going to be putting it up on Loving Live TV where there won't be any buffering. It'll be perfect. I do apologize. There's not much I can do about it. It's a technical issue at YouTube. But as I say, in tomorrow morning's email that you get, you'll see the link to the one on Loving Live TV where there won't be any buffering and you'll see it all perfect. All right, let's just continue. What are the psychological impacts of revenge porn on victims? And before you actually answer that, I just want to put a scenario to you which I've heard of, which is really, really distressing, where some girl who might be, let's say, 10 years old is tricked into sending a nude photo of herself to some other person, and all of a sudden that photo appears, well, it's sent to all the kids in the school. That would be pretty horrific for the victim, wouldn't it?
Yes, it is. It's extreme emotional distress, yeah. And they often, especially with a child, so we could look at this as either, depending on if this is child on child violence or internet violence, then it would be classed again as cyberbullying. We wouldn't really class it as revenge porn then. But the impact of cyberbullying even is horrendous. But now what we could even look at in a case like this, because it's a photo coerced of a 10-year-old and posted online for others to enjoy and see, where the person may or may not profit, this can actually be charged and prosecuted as human trafficking. which is a much higher sentence. Yeah.
But what about the
So-
age? What about the age issue? If the person circulating it is, let's say,
Well-
12 or something like that.
Yeah, that's where I say that's where it would. If this was an adult involved, we could prosecute as trafficking. Yeah, if it's children, we would then prosecute under as cyber harassment, even though it's minors. If they're older, it would also depend on what age they are as to how much intent they could be proven to have. So if it's under 7, we assume that they don't have intent. If it's under 14, between 7 and 14, we kind of assume that they do have intent, and after 14, they almost have adult type of intent. So it would be a case of proving the intent of that victim, because they may not realize what they've actually done and the grave repercussions of this. So depending on where you would sit here, you could, if it's an adult involved, we could look at trafficking. If it's children, I mean, this would seriously need to be dealt with between the parents, the victim where they got the naked image, because then these kids would have been seen to have been basically involved in the production and dissemination of porn, which is also of child pornography, which is also illegal.
Yeah.
So there would be many ways of actually dealing with that situation. But that even if it's a child, that would be subject to prosecution.
Look, this is such a complex area, and I guess the golden rule is don't share any compromising photos of yourself with anybody online, because once that photo's out there, it can be all over the internet. You can't stop it.
Yeah, well, the problem is, even if it's your significant other, the chances of that relationship breaking up, even if it's your wife or your husband, the chances of that relationship breaking up in South African society, and now what's the divorce rate? 50% on first marriages, 75% on seconds.
Wow. Ouch.
That's where we're kind of sitting. Yeah, it's high.
Oh, wow.
That significant other could be an ex 5 years down the line. And an angry ex would be, depending on how that relationship breaks up as well. Somebody feels they've been financially wronged, may very well indulge in these types of behaviors.
Yeah.
So my advice, yes, don't share anything of any nature with anyone. But my second piece of advice to the people that feel they really, really need to do this for whatever reason, do not put a photo of your genitals and your face on the same image. Make sure that if you want to send your dick pics, send your dick, don't send your face.
But, Philly's raised a really interesting question here. She says, why are these little kids allowed to have access to cell phones, which gives them the ability to basically take these photos, and because of their innocence and they really aren't aware of the ramifications, they share photos. I mean, surely wouldn't it be better if kids under, let's say, 14 weren't allowed to have cell phones?
Between you and me, Scott, yes, definitely. And if they are allowed to have cell phones, they need to have very strict rules around the cell phones. And this goes again to parental responsibility. So if, a lot of the kids now for school, they have to have tablets. So all the learning is done on the tablets right from grade 1. It's ridiculous in my opinion, but they're all smart devices. They all have internet connections. These types of devices, if you are going to give this to a young child, you need to take responsibility of the parent. As a parent, you need to monitor that phone. You need to make sure that those phones do not go to the bedroom with the child ever.
Yeah.
Ever. That's extremely important. You need to monitor the phones. You need to have open phone hour where those kids know they have to hand their phones to you, and you go through the phones, you look at the images, you look through the WhatsApp messages, you make sure that those kids are using those phones as they should be used. And again, it's lazy parents a lot of the time. that causes these problems. You have to keep your children educated. Unfortunately, we live in a society where you can't let your kids run wild on the internet. You know, we say to ourselves, do you buy your children a gun? No. And if you do you supervise them while they're using it? Yes. But you give them a cell phone, which is as dangerous as a gun for ruining their lives. And in fact, even getting them to commit suicide. It can even kill them.
Yeah.
But we leave them unsupervised to use these devices. It's absolutely ridiculous. And this is why when we train things like cyberbullying, we don't go into the schools and train the children. We train the parents, we train the children, and we train the teachers. Because they all need to be aware. They're all on these devices. They all need to be aware of what to do, how it works, the signs and symptoms to look for. It doesn't help to train just one of the sets of people involved, because it's kind of pointless.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, is revenge porn a crime in South Africa? And under what legislation can be relied on as a remedy?
So it is a crime in South Africa. I think we were still on the psychological impact, but no, it's okay, we can go on.
Yeah.
So revenge porn is a crime in South Africa. It's 100% a crime in South Africa. And there, you can use the POPIA Act if you want to seek civil remedy. So that's one of the crimes you can use, the bills you can use. There are a number. Cyberstalking is criminalized under the Cyber Crimes Act. And then obviously we've got the Films and Publications Amendment Act as well, where any person who knowingly distributes private or sexual photographs and films in any medium, including the internet, without the prior consent of the individual or individuals, where the individuals are photographed or filmed, is identifiable or unidentifiable in these said photographs or films, can be guilty of an offence. And when it comes to that, there's 3 criteria that you need to fill. So anyone found guilty of sharing private sexual images and or videos can be jailed for knowingly distributing private sexual photographs or films without the prior consent of the individual featured, sharing private sexual photos or videos publicly with the intention to cause harm or distress, I'm quoting from the Act now,
right,
to another individual, or uploading private sexual photographs where the person can be clearly identified or is named in the accompanying text. What was very important to know, the perpetrator may spend up to 2 years in jail or be fined 150,000 Rand if the victim cannot be identified in the content. If the victim can be identified in any way, the perpetrator could be sentenced to a maximum of 4 years in prison and or be fined up to 300,000 Rand.
Wow.
So that's, yeah. So that's quite
That's a good deterrent.
It should be, but unfortunately people are not aware of that. And then even if you do get the conviction under that law, you can still sue civilly for damages under the POPIA Act.
Right. Now, how many people a year actually get or get found guilty of publishing revenge porn in South Africa? Because you never hear about this in the mainstream media.
You know what? To be honest with you, that's a question I can't answer. I don't have any stats on that. I don't think enough. And I haven't actually seen any successful convictions on revenge porn. We are seeing a lot of convictions on trafficking, though. So depending on how these images are used, a lot of the time, if you gain the image illegally and you traffic it onto websites and you gain some sort of fulfillment or money or anything from that, we can often use this. We can often also use the trafficking laws,
Right.
and the trafficking convictions are becoming very, very successful.
Right. Now, I just want to
So
flash on
interest-
the two PDFs that we've put into the Loving Life TV forum. These are PDFs by my guest, Laurie James, and this one is Exploring Revenge Porn, and it basically talks about exploring the dangers and psychology of revenge porn as well as its impacts on victims. And the other document that Laurie has put together is the legal side. Is revenge porn illegal in South Africa? So do please go to our forum on lovinglifetv.com and have a look at these documents there. Okay, sorry Laurie, back to you.
Yeah, no, I'm good. Next question.
Okay. All right. Next question. We were talking about the psychological impact of revenge porn on victims. Do you want to just add to that?
Yeah. So the psychological impact comes in many different forms, but they are, just bear in mind, these impacts are debilitating and they are long lasting. You can also have where they do cause a lot of impact is an emotional distress on your personal and your professional relationships. They can lead to job losses and financial ruin. Also, victims of revenge porn can experience anxiety, depression, and often suicidal thoughts. So if you know that someone's a victim of revenge porn, I would suggest that you really try to treat them with empathy and compassion. So some of the points to consider, one of the things that they feel, of course, there's a huge amount of emotional trauma. So victims of revenge porn experience severe emotional distress and stress. So please bear that in mind when you're dealing with them. Another thing to consider is the damage to the reputation of that person. Any publication of intimate images or videos without consent can damage a victim's reputation and their relationships. It also leads them to social isolation and often stigmatization. So as a member of the public, if you are dealing with someone, remember that. And when you see someone socially isolating, please reach out to them, because the social isolation is also just a springboard to suicide.
Yeah.
That's another thing they feel is a huge loss of privacy. Of course, that violates a victim's privacy and leaves them feeling very exposed and very vulnerable. They also often have a fear for their personal safety, especially if they've been physically threatened as well. And if that perpetrator has a history of violence or of stalking, they may be in physical danger as well, but they will definitely fear for their personal safety. It can also trigger cyberbullying and harassment and stalking, which can further exacerbate that victim's distress, obviously. They also are subjected to sexual objectification, which you can imagine when images of this nature of you are published. You may become you start being viewed as a sexual object rather than a human being with rights. Another thing to consider, they often suffer symptoms of post-traumatic stress disorder, and that can cause things like flashbacks, nightmares, and other symptoms associated with post-traumatic stress disorder. They also suffer professional consequences. They may lose their employment or damage future career prospects. There are other legal complications. They might find it very difficult to remove the content from the internet, and also they may be very confused navigating the legal system to try to pursue justice, as well as the costs of paying advocates, attorneys, and consultants that can assist them in pursuing justice. So this will have huge financial implications, both in the cost of removing the content, the legal fees, therapy, and this will cause huge financial strain and hardship. So overall, the impact is very far-reaching and can have serious physical, emotional, and psychological and financial implications for these victims. So they really do need to be approached with caution.
Right. Now, while you were talking in this last chat, I heard someone pulling out a chair, and I heard someone sort of, it was like is that someone near you?
No.
Well, I think I've got a cyber stalker on Skype. I'm serious, because I heard this person pulling out a chair, and I didn't move. And I thought, well, maybe you had someone near you.
My mom coughed.
Oh, no, this was pulling out a chair. It was actually...
No, we don't have any chairs here we can pull out. It's a couch.
Okay.
We've got couches.
All right, well, we'll keep an eye on that. I mean, I might have a stalker on Skype. Wow.
Well, there you go. Wouldn't you be lucky?
Well, I've actually had a stalker in the past on the side chat on a live stream.
It's terrific, isn't it?
Oh, look,
Yeah, it's terrific.
this is over a year ago, and what this individual was doing was sort of passing sort of weird comments, and then changed her profile name when I blocked her on, I think it was a she, it could have been a he, I'm not sure, but when I kept on blocking her or him, then it was a new name, but it was just changing the name. Yeah.
They do that. They make like 10, 15 profiles, and they just keep coming. And that's why they're so dangerous. Because just when you think you've managed to block one, they get another one, and another one, and another one. And sometimes it's 15 together. And they just keep coming. They'll make 10, 15 profiles, and they'll stalk you with everything. The problem is when these guys actually learn to use the open source intelligence tools, and they start using these tools to find more and more information on you, they really can go to town. And it's very difficult to escape them, because from a phone number you can use online source, open source intelligence. Just from a phone number, you can find all that person's email addresses linked to that phone number. So you don't only target them on the email that they've given you. You'll find all their additional email addresses. You'll find all their social media that's linked to that phone number. And you'll find their financials, possibly, their family members. It's horrific how much information we put on the internet.
Yeah.
And we really don't understand, as normal people functioning in society, what the cybersecurity risks are, and what your actual risks are to your personal safety when you disseminate that kind of information.
Yeah. Well, I've got to say, my golden rule when it comes to Facebook is I don't put any photos on there. I don't, and I haven't actually put anything on my own personal Facebook page since 2007, which is over 15 years ago. I just got...
I don't think you need to be that crazy about it. I mean, I just think you need to moderate what you put out there. So don't put things out there that deprecate you as a human. It's stuff that can come back to haunt you. But as far as putting an image up, or I mean, I post when I've ridden in a horse show. I post a video, and because we have quite a big horse community on my Facebook. So everybody that I've got about, I don't know, there's a lot of people. So we all, support each other. I've got my school groups, so it's fun if you go somewhere, post a photo. If you're posting photos, I wouldn't suggest posting photos of your children. Don't post photos of your children, and if you do, blur their faces. It's all about everything in moderation. These guys that post what they have for breakfast, lunch, and supper are going over the top. You don't have to post every meal you have. It's too much, and that irritates people. I think it's all just about living life in moderation, and I think that's where we've lost that in the modern society. We're either too afraid to do anything, or we're so over the top. We put everything on there, including our underwear. You know, it's just there's no moderation
Yeah.
in modern society.
Yeah. Well, obviously the golden rule is don't ever put a photo up anywhere on the internet or share a photo that's going to be able to compromise you in the future.
Well, that's exactly it. Think about, I always tell my clients, if you're prepared to put that image on a global billboard, and I'm not talking about a billboard between Pretoria and Joburg, if you're prepared to put it on a global billboard with a global audience seeing that picture every day and night, then post it. If you're not prepared for a global audience to see it and to disseminate it and to laugh at it or whatever, don't post it.
Yeah.
Because when you put it on the internet, you're putting it into the public domain. You lose control over that image. It's no longer yours. You can disseminate images because you've agreed on Facebook to put it into the public domain. Even when you make these reels, they say when you post a reel, you actually give permission for other people to use those reels in production of further reels. So you need to be aware, and that's why I say make sure that when you sign up to these social media platforms, you know what the policies state. And you need to stay, I know we don't want to read policies, but know what you're signing up for. Yeah. Know how those images can be used. Know that you lose control of those images when you post them. Even your videos, when you post them as reels, you lose control. You're basically giving permission for other people to use them.
Yeah, exactly. Now, I'm going to wrap up very shortly, but Philly says this is how Thabo Bester found his victims.
It's how most people find their victims today. It's not just Thabo Bester, it's most people. Remember, we live in a weird society today. Now, if you grew up when I grew up, and us people in our 50s, late 40s, 50s, early 50s, we grew up in a different world. We didn't have cell phones. We weren't savvy. It's very easy to be targeted if you are not really on top of this stuff. And we aren't, because I am, because I have to be because of my company. But most people are not aware of the dangers of the internet. When we wanted to have a date, we went up, we spoke to people, we went to a restaurant, we met people in the pub, we kind of had a good, if there's a face-to-face, you still got into trouble, but at least you knew who you were dealing with. Today, you don't know who you're dealing with. There's a veil of anonymity. There's a veil that these predators hide behind. And that exposes you, because you can think you're in love with someone, but you've never met them, never seen them. They've been schmoozing you on the internet. They may have been using a different image. They may look nothing like what the person that you think you're talking to. And it's a foreign world for the over 40s. And people haven't adapted to it that well. When you look at the youngsters that have grown up with cell phones in their hands, they're a little bit more savvy. But they also are not fully aware of the repercussions of this type of behavior, because they don't look at the laws. They're spontaneous. They don't do the research that they should do into how to protect yourself. Their parents don't always have the time or the inclination to protect them, because parents today are lazy. They're lazy and they're involved in their own careers. And I'm afraid the modern generation is very narcissistic. It's all about me, and we don't have time to do the things that we actually should be doing, because it's all about me.
Yeah.
And this is a problem. So a lot of these kids are not properly educated and they get their education from their peers online, which may not be the correct education. And that's why I say it falls to the family, be that a broken family or not, because many are broken. Even if you're a single parent, you need to take that child, you need to explain these concepts to them in a age-appropriate manner and show them how to protect themselves. Make sure their phones have good security settings if you're going to give them smartphones. Make sure those phones don't go to bed with them. And the same thing for yourselves. Familiarize yourself with settings. Familiarize yourself with security. Have a number of somebody that you can call in a crisis available, readily available, that you don't need to go and search for who can I call, what can I do, and go through all that stress. Make sure that you've got a contact. Cybereti's there. You can use us.
Yeah.
At least we know the channels to follow to shut it down. We have a digital forensics team. We have good relationship with law enforcement. We can make sure that your statements are correct. We can show you how to keep your evidence and preserve it. So we can put all that technical assistance. And then with myself, obviously, I'm a criminal profiler. I have psychology. We can do the emotional and the psychological support that you will need at the same time.
Right. Do you counsel people as well? And basically what they shouldn't do?
Yes, we do. We look at the full internet security package. So we counsel, we actually can evaluate behaviors. We can show you exactly where you're going wrong. We have evaluation tools that will evaluate the probability of you becoming a cyberstalking victim or a cyberbullying victim. We also have the evaluation tools that evaluate whether the person has a potential to become an actual cyber bully. And then we do all that support. I've got a master's in cognitive behavioral therapy, as well as neurolinguistics, as well as hypno. So, and I also do equine assisted therapy for people that need it, because a lot of our victims are young and they shut down completely emotionally, and we find that the conventional therapies don't work, but the equine assisted therapies do work because their focus is on the animal, and that teaches them to reconnect with emotion. But we use the cognitive together with the equine. So we have a lot of methodologies. We use this for extracting information from traumatized witnesses as well.
Now, Phyllis actually raised another really interesting idea. She said this should probably be a subject at school, how to navigate social media responsibly and safely. Do you have schools that actually approach you and get you to talk to the kids?
Yes, we do, yeah. We're prepared to do that. How we do that is we try to encourage the schools to also assist the schools in making a little bit of money. So we try to make it an event and then invite all the parents. So we'll talk to the kids during assembly or during school time.
Yeah.
But we try to make an event out of it for the parents, even if they charge like $100 for whatever for the talk. And then we come in and we talk, and that means everybody's costs are covered, and the school even makes a little bit of money. So we encourage that. It also gets people talking about their problems. They can bring the examples. We'll deal with one example at a time, break down the cases, look at where the laws were transcribed and what remedies are available under the various laws. The Cyber Crimes Act, the Film and Publications Act, the POPIA Act. So there's a lot of remedies that are available. So we'll break this. People that have had actual problems, we can go through case studies with them. So yeah, we do that. I believe that you won't combat this unless you train it at schools. Funny enough,
absolutely.
We've got there's a lot of interest in the cyberbullying, and a lot of private companies, even the banks, are looking at getting involved in the sponsorship of some of these programs. So there's definite will, corporate as well, to get involved and to try to put programs together. Our program is slightly different because we can offer the support of international law enforcement as well. So remember, if something happens, for example, if you publish porn on let's say a Google server, you need American Homeland Security to get involved to help you secure the warrants and things they can issue. Meta is a bit different. Meta will work directly with the law enforcement in the country. There's actually a portal you can go in as law enforcement to where you can put your warrants in and where they'll give you back the information. It's a good little portal. But the others, you need to first determine on what server in which country that image was placed. So we need the assistance there of either Interpol, Homeland Security, UNODC, or any of these associated law enforcement branches
Well,
agencies.
one of the interesting things about publishing is that I'm in Australia, so even if I publish this video onto a server in the USA, the actual, and let's say it's something I shouldn't have published, the actual crime happened in Australia because I published it from my computer in Australia to the internet, and that's something a lot of people don't know.
Yeah, yes, and no. So the crime happened in your country, and you published it in say it's on YouTube. You publish it onto an American server, so you can be prosecuted under US law.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
so you could actually, so like with pornography, child pornography, if you publish it onto an American server, you can be extradited from Australia to America and prosecuted in the US.
Okay.
For the dissemination of CSAM images on a US server.
Yeah. Okay.
So yeah, it's quite dangerous.
Well, I don't go around publishing that sort of stuff.
No, I'm saying anybody, not you specifically. But if a person were to do that, So you would have your so with a pornographic image, for example, you would take the photograph. So that would be the creation of child pornography.
Mm-hmm.
You took the photograph. Then you have the publication of that child pornography, which you would publish from your computer, but then onto a US server where it's held. As soon as it's held on a US server, you become subject to US law.
Okay. I thought the actual publication was the place where the crime took place, but that's okay.
No, because you publish onto a server. You don't publish. When you publish, you press upload.
Yeah.
You upload it onto an American server.
Yeah.
There's your crime.
Okay.
There's your digital component,
Yeah. Now, I'm going to wrap up this live stream. We've been going for a bit over an hour now. But look, Laurie, thank you so much. But can you send me your company's contact details, a Facebook page or a website or whatever, and I'll put them below this video.
Sure.
You know, so that people can.
Sure, I'll do that.
And I'll also put links to the two documents in the forum.
Also, Scott, if your people are listening still, we have a LinkedIn page. It's called Cyberetti Consulting Services. I'll send you the link.
Yeah.
We publish all our articles on that specific forum. So if you want, and we do a lot. We do the cyber world, we do stalking, we do revenge porn. Everything that I publish goes onto that specific page. It's the first page to get the information, and it's very rich on information on these types of crimes. We try to publish articles on psychology, on law, and on social media, and in fact other crime too. So we'll look at things like war crimes and the psychological impact of war and long-term trauma and all these types of articles. They're all on that page.
Right.
So I would, if you have an interest in this field, I would strongly suggest following the LinkedIn page.
Yeah. Okay. And look, your industry must be a huge growing industry when you consider how things have changed in the last 20 years.
Yeah, I think it's definitely moving. I think cybersecurity is probably one of the best careers for young children who are interested in this to go into. Reason being, even though we're seeing retrenchments in the IT communities, like the big IT companies, we are seeing an increase in the employment in cybersecurity posts. And the prediction is that we're sitting on about 3.5 million vacant posts at the moment. So for anybody that's looking for a career, that's interested in the cybersecurity side of things, it's a great career, and and the skills shortage is huge. So they anticipate that there will be 3.5 million to 4 million vacant posts right through to early 2026.
Wow.
So it's something for kids to look at. There's growth, and there are very good prospects for cyber.
Right. Okay.
And it's global.
Yeah, fantastic. Laurie, thank you so much for joining us tonight. And I think we've had you on a couple of times now, and it's always really interesting learning more about this area. Have a great evening, and take care.
Thank you, and thanks to all the listeners and the people that tuned in. It was a pleasure. I hope the information helps.
Oh, it will. And just to remind people that there'll be links to Laurie's business underneath the video. And the one that will be recorded on Loving Life TV won't have any of the buffering that we've experienced on YouTube, which is a bit of a pain. But there's nothing we can do about that.
Also, in those documents, Scott, those documents at the bottom is our internet site, as well as a contact number, I think, and an email address.
Fantastic.
I think so. Yeah.
All right. Fantastic.
On those downloads of those PDFs.
Yeah. All right, Laurie, take care and have a great evening.
You too.
Okay.
You too.
Bye
You
for
too.
now.
Have a good one. Bye.
All right, guys, that was Laurie James, and we were talking obviously about this whole area of. Sorry, I'm just finding this little screen. Where is it? Here we are. Okay. Yeah. So we were talking about this really bad area that's exploding on the internet, which is cyberbullying, cybercrime, revenge porn, and things like that. I'm going to go out with Hier Bly Ek Boer, and thanks to the mods for looking after the side chat for me, and have a great evening. Bye for now.
Meer as 61,000 van ons voorvaders het op die grens van ons geserwe, so ons verryk kan wees. Die is my land, die is my reg, hier is ek boer. Soms ek gemaak en sal ek terugkeer. Die Bybel is die woord waaruit ek leer, soos die grond op die aarde. Hier bly ek boer. So diep in die nacht sal die vyand kom, maar hier bly ek staan en ek draai nie om, want jy maak my nie bang nie. Hier bly ek boer. Die is my land waarvoor ek sal veg. Die is my bloed, my sweet, my rug. Die is die plek waar my voorvaders leef. Die is my land, hoor wat ek jou sê. Die is my land, wat my mense voer. Hier bly ek boer. Laat dan my nie somer wat vreugde bring. My opa wat maniekie roek kon sing, soos hy stap deur die lande. Hier was hy boer. My wortels het diep in die grond geplant. Sy siel soos my pa, los ek vir jou die land, en jy hoef nie te vrees nie. Hier sal jy boer. Die is my land, waarvoor ek sal veg. Die is my bloed, my sweet, my rug. Die is die plek waar my voorvaders leef. Die is my land, hoor wat ek jou sê. Die is my land, wat my mense voer. Hier
stalking,
Dies mijn land van vooruit zal gaan. En dies mijn bloed, mijn spirit, mijn hart. Dies die plek van mijn voorvaders heer. Dies mijn land, waar mijn dag goes. Dies mijn land van mijn